ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us here this afternoon for what will be episode 5 of the Bandcast. I'm, of course, Gregor Guy, joined here by Mr. Casey. We're going to do a little bit of a different type of Bandcast this week. You know, almost a little throwback to one of our earlier segments about headlines of the world. So, hopefully, you'll enjoy it. And if you do, remember to drop that down in the comments if you want to see more content like this. And also remember to like, share,
and subscribe.
Hit that bell button! That was actually pretty good. Yeah, we're making fun of you, cuz. Anyway, so, like I said, the general concept of this is, we're going to go through and have, a brief discussion on, a few news stories here on, or going on throughout the course of the week. So, you pretty much prepared most of this, Casey, so I'm going to just toss it over to you.
So, we decided on going with the first story here, is that the AUS and Australia are doing a diplomatic boycott of the Winter Olympics held in Beijing, China.
What exactly does that all entail? Are they still sending the athletes?
Yes, the athletes are still going, but the politicians, maybe VIPs, will not be attending from Australia and the U.S. I haven't heard of anybody else boycotting, but for now, it's not really a real punishment. They're not really. Who cares? Who cares whether the diplomats go or to these things or not?
On top of that, Winter Olympics.
Yeah, Winter Olympics. I like the bobsledding. Personally, bobsledding
Bobsledding's cool.
And luge. And I like to watch the skiers try to commit suicide by jumping off giant jumps.
Yeah, I forgot all about that. Yeah. You've obviously watched that, right? These dudes are flying like 80, 100 feet in the air.
Yeah. It's definitely...
Ooh. How much of a lunatic do you have to be to do that particular type of sport?
I don't know if I wouldn't do it. That's for sure. Not without a parachute, at least. They are flying through the sky, and it definitely looks scary just watching them. You get the feeling that somebody's going to die.
Well, and that also traditionally that does happen. In like bobsledding and also
yeah,
luge.
They are definitely very dangerous sports. They are very high speed sports.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So, and the reason for the obviously the boycotting is the forced internments, sterilization, forced assimilation,
quote concentration camps, as some people call them.
We can call it. It is basically a concentration camp in the sense because they're killing these people. The Uyghur Muslims, which, by the way, this has been going on for a very long time. This is not new. Everybody knows it. How they are allowed, how politicians and people of power haven't been speaking out this. Well, first of all, we know why. It's for money. They're defending and they're trying to hide the fact that morally, in every single part of the world, this is just completely unjust and completely uncalled for, and it's disgusting.
I do want to bring up the point that, obviously, as far as internment camps, we all know the really bad one, that happened. But, at the same point in time, after Pearl Harbor and everything, the United States back in, World War II era, they also, created the Japanese internment camps.
Right, but
however, we didn't, probably perform the same heinous acts, I would say, that are more or less going on, I would assume, in these Chinese camps.
We treated them probably more like prisoners.
Yeah.
These people are basically, I I don't know if it'll catch the word, but they're not. They're treated like people that are forced to do work and not get paid for it. So you can think of the word.
All right. So more of a labor camp.
A labor camp where they sterilize you and take your body organs when they feel like they need them to sell to rich VIPs.
There you go. You heard it first. Black market livers on sale, boys.
So let's move on to the next one. Let's go with DeSantis, the governor of Florida. He's calling for a Florida military force to be created.
Okay, now you know, as our resident veteran, what do you see that actually being?
A National Guard.
Okay, I mean, don't they already have a Florida National Guard?
Right, but this is the reason. This is the reason what mainstream media isn't telling you about this story. That it's coming on the heels of the Defense Secretary warning that National Guard members who are not getting the poke are going to be their pay is going to be withheld. Mm-hmm. So those members of the Florida National Guard can just unilaterally move over to the Florida Defense Force or Florida Military Force. Which, by the way, these things aren't new. There are these kinds of forces, militias, all over the country. There's at least 24 other of them, and the only thing is they're not controlled, or they're not controlled by the federal government, and that is why mainstream media thinks that they're scary.
Yeah, okay, well, okay, I see two things here. Number one, I basically see this as a way to circumvent, what is attempting to be, going on, from a national level.
Right.
Versus, particular state level. I mean, do you concur with that?
Right.
I mean, it's very good that these soldiers, keep their pay and everything. Number one. Number two, could this potentially be a way to ensure that there is no chance whatsoever that these members of the Florida Defense Force ever lose their personal firearms? Because the Second Amendment specifically states a well-armed militia, if they are technically a militia.
Well, that's true. That the well-armed militia. So basically, there's nothing against the law. In fact, the law actually encourages a well-armed militia to be present. Also, keep and bear firearms is another law that is also part of, and the beginning part of that.
Right, Second Amendment.
So they can't stop it. That's just the law. That's just the way it is. As much as people would like to take away those rights and change that, but it's never going away.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I'm just saying that I could potentially see that as being, total way out, because there you go. That's a direct violation of the Second Amendment, especially if they call that particular. What were they calling it? Florida Defense Force? Florida
Defense Force.
Okay. They should call it the Florida Militia. Period. End of story. Said and done.
It's historical, basically. Yeah. So let's move on to the next thing. Next thing we got is Chris Cuomo is fired from CNN for stalking his brother's accusers. That's the way it was put. I didn't really read that much into it. I don't know what he did, but obviously he shouldn't be reporting on his own brother's stories.
Right. Yeah, agreed. I mean, there's obviously going to be some sort of bias there.
Right.
At the same point in time, I also heard that he was in a 4-year contract with CNN, making $6 million plus a year.
They get paid a disgusting amount to be actors. and by the way, I mean actors. They are creating physical fantasy a fantasy world which doesn't exist. I tried to. In fact, when I was going through these stories, I was really trying hard because I was going to make you angry by putting a CNN story in this, but I couldn't find one that made any sense whatsoever in the real world.
I mean, yeah. Unfortunately, that is, in my opinion anyway, as a byproduct of mainstream media, having to basically rely on, bringing in advertisements and advertisers, so on and so forth. So, it all boils down to, ratings at the end of the day. If people aren't watching on it, clicking on it, or whatever, they're not showing their ads, they're not getting the ad revenue. I mean, it's a business, realistically, and it's all about, who, in my opinion, that, they can get into power that will have their interests, in the back of their minds as well, after they reach that position.